You didn't all of a sudden wake up one day and say, I want to get involved in human trafficking and help these kids out. How did that happen?
Well, about 11 years ago, I I got a phone call from our attorney general,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Paul," he said, "I know you've donated a lot of money to child-related charities." He said, "I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. Good people don't know that it's happening."
Was it was it during Obama?
No, this was the attorney general in Utah.
Oh,
So
in
it was,
Utah.
yeah, it
Oh,
was
okay.
our state attorney general.
Attorney General.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he started talking about this operators who were in South America that identified some children. They had identified 50 or 20 children at the time in Cartagena, and they needed about $50,000 to help rescue the kids. I'm like, okay, I can help handle that. I was in a really good place.
Mhm.
I had a very successful company. At one point of my life, I had 2 helicopters. I had a house with 10 bathrooms, 8 private
Mhm.
suites, 3 kitchens, a basketball court in my basement. This was the lifestyle. So, here, all this, it was all ego me. But yeah, I wanted to help kids with that. I think it
Mhm.
was me feeling guilty for the massive success that I had. So I was helping wherever I could. Well, I remember when I made that decision, I thought, okay, do I just give money to the guy on the side of the street that's asking me for drug money? And I did. I remember I had a friend that said, "Paul, are you really making a difference?" I said, "You know what? I can't judge.
Mhm.
That could have been me if I wasn't in a healthy home." I said, "But over time, I realized I was contributing to a welfare mentality problem. So over time, I decided to focus fully on children. Child really, I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors for 7 years. I was the incoming chairman for Make-A-Wish in our area when I got that call from the attorney general. And so he tells me about child trafficking, tells me about these guys needed some money. So I helped to fund that mission. Then a few weeks later, one of the operators called me and he said, "Paul, I'm here in Cartagena. There's not just 20 children here, there's more than 50, and there's more than 100 children in other rings that are tied to these trafficking rings in other cities." He said, "We can rescue all of these 100 children on the same day, but I need your help." And I said, well, how much do you need? He said, "I need you. Could you be in Colombia in
Mhm.
2 days?" He said the head trafficker has a piece of property he wants to develop into a child brothel sex resort. He needs a few $1 million to build it out. He believes he can make tens of millions of dollars a year.
But isn't it illegal there? They're allowed to do that?
It's illegal most places in the world.
Yeah.
But
But where he wanted to do that was it?
well, here's the thing. There are certain countries, and I've been working in Colombia for the last few years and helping to change laws and policies. Here, when I did undercover work in Amsterdam, we couldn't find children for sale. Why? Because prostitution is legal, but it is very controlled. Right now, I'm not a fan whatsoever of prostitution. It has killed so many families. However, this is what I wrote to the Senate in Colombia. If you are going to legalize it, it has to be controlled, because if it's legal and to have prostitution and you don't have the girls checking in and having verification of their ages and stuff, it is wrought for opportunities for traffickers to traffic children without consequence.
Got it. Way.
Yeah, this was an island that he wanted to build it out on, and
No.
and this was outside of Cartagena. You literally, at the time, you could walk down the street and you'd see police officers over there and prostitutes over there, and you knew for sure that was a 12-year-old.
Mm.
And when you see some foreigner come and pick her up and the police aren't doing anything, it would happen all the time. So fortunately, those things have changed now. Colombia is now the shining example of how policies and law changes can make a huge impact in keeping the children safe.
Just a question. Epstein's Island, was there any jurisdiction over that island at all? Was there any supervision, any control whatsoever?
It's an interesting question. So yes and no, right? They're back at the time, back even 5, 6, 7 years ago, doing my undercover work.
Mhm.
If you went to another country or you went to an island or whatever else, and you did something horrible with a 12-year-old, you would have to be prosecuted in that country in order for the only way to be prosecuted in the US at the time is that we would have to prove that you that you, while in on U.S. soil, made the decision to go to that other country to do that horrible thing with that 12-year-old. Some of our people helped to make changes in the law where now you go anywhere in the world and you end up with a 12-year-old in that situation. You can be prosecuted in the United States, even if you're not prosecuted there, even if the laws of that country don't prosecute. And so it's amazing that has happened, because, you know, if you go rob a bank in South America, you can't get arrested and go to jail in the U.S. for robbing a bank down there. You know, you have to be prosecuted in that country. But if you go down there and rape a child, absolutely. The very second you come into the U.S., you can get nailed. Even after you finish your sentence, if they did prosecute you down there, you finish your sentence there, you come to the U.S., you get sentenced again here.
And it doesn't have to be a U.S. person that you abused.
Nope. If you're a U.S. citizen and you go anywhere in the world and abuse a child, you can get prosecuted.
Is that a recent law?
That's within the last 5+ years. So
during Trump?
Huh?
During Trump's administration?
It was during Trump's first administration. Yeah, it for sure wasn't in the last 4 years.
All right. So let me ask you. So now you can rescue 50 children.
Yeah.
And that's what got you.
Yeah.
Going.
So I said, well, what do I need? He said, well, I have to have somebody who can effectively negotiate this transaction with the traffickers. He said, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to wear a $50,000 watch and negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate deal. These guys are going to see through fake money all day long. And what's interesting, at the time I got the call, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I was at a conference with third-generation billionaire families, and I was raising money for my real estate fund, right? And I said, well, what kind of outfit do I need? And he goes, just come dressed as a wealthy playboy. And I looked down. I have a suit that costs more than my first car, right? I've got this conservative blue on the outside, but it's bright pink on the inside. I had a $50,000 watch. I had cufflinks that were $2,000 cufflinks. I'm like, I think I got the outfit, right? So I jump on a plane. About an hour later, after I committed to go, my business partner, John Pennington, called me. He was the co-founder of the fund with me. And he said, Paul, I heard through the grapevine what you're planning to do. He said, have you thought through this? He said, you're set. You can retire today, buy an island, be happy the rest of your life. And I said, John, would I really be happy if I bought an island, if I bought a yacht, if I bought another jet? I said, would that make me happy? I said, tell me this. If I was doing something else dangerous tomorrow, if I was climbing Everest tomorrow, you and I would have the same conversation. He said, yeah, we probably would. I said, and when I'm 95 years old and I look back on my life and I say, I climbed this mountain and I helped build this multi-billion-dollar company and I helped rescue this many children from slavery, which of them matters at all? He said, you're right, Paul. He said, if your persona, if your skill sets, if that's something they need, he said, I support you. I understand you need to go. I said, even if I can only rescue one child, it would be worth it, right? And so 2 days later, I'm in Colombia, face to face with people selling me children. The interesting thing about it, Michael, was I thought, okay, these guys are going to have, tattoos down their neck and 3 earrings in their noses. That's the look. And the first trafficker I met was a business owner. He was clean cut. He had a polo shirt, clean shaven. The second I met was a beautiful woman that worked with a modeling agency. I thought, these guys aren't traffickers.
Just, were they married?
No, they were there working together with different,
I'm saying neither one of them had a family.
No, but yes, the businessman did.
He did.
In fact, what was interesting is between the time that I first met him and that when the sting went down just a few weeks later, I was texting back and forth with him to make sure that he was bringing, all of his inventory, et cetera, for me to make sure he had so we could rescue him, right? And one of my texts with him, and I talk about this in the Sound of Freedom book that's coming out. He sends me a picture of him with his 3-year-old daughter in his back seat. Now, he wasn't trafficking her yet, but over time, most of these traffickers end up trafficking their own kids.
Trafficking his own daughter?
So many times these traffickers end up trafficking their own kids when they get older.
Wow.
He wasn't trafficking her yet, but what he said, this was so interesting. He sent me a text and he said, after he had sent me that picture, and I was just appalled, and he said, Pablo, they call me Pablo. He said, Pablo, he said, I'm showing you my picture of her so you know why I'm doing all of this. I want to buy her Ferraris and make all this money for her. He said, I believe that God sent you to me.
Oh my God.
And what was going through my head is, you're right. God did send me.
Yeah.
Right? So I can make sure that child in your backseat never has to go through what these children are that you're trafficking today.
Did you tell him that?
No, of course I didn't.
Later on? My gosh. What kind of people are these? They got children and they're going to traffic other children, maybe their own?
Well, and
I'll tell you what we would have done with them. I don't know if you know my background.
Oh yeah, I do know your background,
Yeah.
and that's what I felt I wanted to do.
Gone.
I was that very first meeting with these guys. I'm sitting there. I've got a Navy SEAL that's standing behind me. He's my real bodyguard and my show bodyguard, right? And he's standing behind me, and one of the traffickers leans forward and he goes, Pablo, he said, I have a gift for you. I said, really, what's your gift? This is our very first meeting where we're negotiating this party. I'm telling him, listen, I'm willing to fund your project under one condition. We're going to have a party in about a week. You're going to bring all your existing inventory. If I'm happy with what I see, I'll fund your resort. We had to get him to bring all of their children to one place at one time so we could rescue them.
So did he think you were buying them for your own personal use, whatever you were going to do?
I told him I was giving him $500 per child just for 2 hours in the afternoon with him. That's why I was paying him, right? But really, it was just so that we could get him to call the other traffickers, get them to bring all the children together.
That was a scene in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And so he was so excited I was willing to do that. He says, I have a gift for you. I said, really, what's your gift? And he hands me his phone. And there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on his phone. He said, this is Princess. She's still a virgin. He said, he started talking about horrific things I could do to this little girl. And I thought, oh my God, I said, if we could help rescue these kids before they're ever trafficked in the first place, that would be a miracle. And then something he said made me realize he had more than her. I said, Fuego, I said, you say you just took delivery of some? I said, do you have more virgins? He goes, oh yeah, I got 3 or 4 more. I said, you're bringing those to my party too, right? He goes, oh no. He says, they're too expensive. I said, too expensive? I'm already paying this guy $25,000. I'm paying him $500 per child just for that time. I said, he said, Jefe, you already paid $25,000. He said, you want to fuck those other virgins? It's going to cost you maybe $2,000, maybe $5,000 for that little one. It's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more. Now at this point, Michael, I am legitimately pissed. No acting involved. He's talking about these children like they're commodities. I've got my really nice suit, $50,000 watch. I put my hands on my chest and I said, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He said, oh no, Jefe, no. I said, I want every one of those virgins at my party. I said, they damn well better be virgins when they get there. They're not for you. They're for me. You understand? He goes, oh yeah, Jefe, I understand. This stupid smile on his face. Now, the Navy SEAL that was behind me cleared his throat and he was I didn't check out the restaurant, make sure everything is safe. Later in debriefing, he said, you know what? He says, that little girl on that phone looked like my daughter at home. He said, I almost unholstered my weapon and shot him right there.
Probably had all to do to hold back.
Yeah. He said, but I knew if I did, he said, we would lose all those other kids.
I have a question for all my friends and followers. Have you tried my wine yet? You know, in the last 2 years, we've made tremendous progress with Franzese wine, and it's really all thanks to your support, and obviously because people are finding out we have a great wine at a great price. In 2025, we aim to become a national brand, and I want all of you to be a part of it. Every bottle you buy, every story you share builds more than a brand. It fuels a movement. The story of our wine is one of people having second chances and of lives being transformed. That's the truth. So go to my website, franzesewine.com, and get your bottle today. Salud, my friends.
And now in the movie, my character is Pablo Delgado, the billion-dollar fund manager who quits his job to go rescue
This movie
kids.
Originated with all of what you've done?
In the Sound of Freedom movie, we took 8 different rescue missions and put them all together into one storyline. So we kind of put a lot of attention on Jim Caviezel's character. The truth is there was a lot of other operators that did some of those things. We just put all those stories together, right? And the truth is, and you read about this in the Sound of Freedom book, where the jungle was not even in Colombia. That was in Haiti. That was looking for a little boy, not a little girl. There was, a lot of other operators went in dressed as doctors on different operations, etc. But all those stories really happened. They just didn't happen as we showed it in the movie. But that first rescue mission, the Jim Caviezel's like, only way I can pull this off is if I can convince Pablo to help fund it and be down here. Well, I'm Pablo in real life. I was running a multi-billion-dollar investment fund. I had a special set of skills from a previous life that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. I was a rich playboy full of ego and pride and arrogance and lust. That's what the traffickers were looking for, right? And so in the movie, Jim Caviezel is like, he gives a picture of this 11-year-old girl to my driver, and that's what convinced me to go. In real life, I was already there. I was face to face with these traffickers, but him showing me the picture of that 11-year-old galvanized my commitment to help fund this, whatever I needed to do. Now, fast forward 2 weeks later, we're at this island. The traffickers brought 54 children. Now, we had 3 separate cities at the same time, a total of over 120 children that were at these 3 separate cities with these simultaneous operations going on. I was there in Cartagena. We're sitting there at this island. These guys bring 54 children. Almost every one of them were under the age of 16 years old. Some of them were trafficked from other countries. We put them in a separate place of the house because they're already traumatized enough. We don't want them seeing the guns and the money changing hands, etc. I'm sitting there on this chair, negotiating with these traffickers on their business plan. Hidden cameras capturing our entire conversation so they couldn't come out later and say, oh, I thought the kids were coming to a pool party. No, you said exactly why she was there, exactly what she was willing to do. And this was a dark conversation, probably even too dark for your audience. This was a dark conversation talking about exactly what they do to these children, what they're willing to do, what they're paying them, everything, what they're forcing them to do, etc. And then halfway through this meeting, one of the traffickers gets up and he said, Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you. This is the moment that changed my life. He went in the house where the children are. He was there for about 10 minutes, and we could hear some of the children crying. They were so scared of coming out and meeting the men who were supposed to defile them, right? And pretty soon they came out, and they had 4 virgins, scared to death. They had 3 little girls.
Old.
And 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. He was taken from Haiti. He was given cocaine that morning because he was so scared it was going to hurt. I mean, what kind of monster thinks that that's attractive? Every cell in my body wanted to just hug these kids and say, you're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents again. I couldn't say that. And I'm sitting on this chair and they bring these girls out and this little boy. And one of the girls was the same one he showed me on that picture. And she's standing in front of me and she had red hair with braids down the back. Her shirt had a little kitty cat on it. She was 11. And her face had makeup on it that had been smeared. She had been crying. She was so scared of this moment. She thought that this was it. And everything in me wanted to just say, no, it's not going to happen. You're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents. I couldn't say that. I took her little hands. I'm sitting down. She's standing up and we're eye level. And I said to her, I said, ¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name? She didn't answer. It's because her real name probably wasn't Princess, right? She was trying to figure out what the traffickers wanted her to say. And I just said, está bien. It's okay. I couldn't blow our covers. The agents hadn't come to arrest everybody. We were still sitting there in the middle of all these traffickers. And I said to the traffickers, it's not time for the party to start. There was a delay. The delay in the movie wasn't because all the kids were there. They were already there. The delay was because some of the child protective services people weren't there with the kids. And so I said, take them back in. We still need to negotiate our deal. And I'm trying to figure out how to delay so that they're not having these kids come out and be traumatized like that. And I said, you know what? I said, you've just proven to me that you could do what you said you would do. This is the inventory you said you had. I said, why don't you bring out these kids, you bring out this cocaine, I'm gonna have a great time. I'm gonna be fucked up for the next few days. Why don't we pencil our deal right now? I was simply trying to delay until the agents came. I had to bring out a notebook and a pen, and I started taking notes about a business plan. And I had negotiated hundreds of business plans in my career. This was second nature to me. But this one was like no other. When the inventory, when the product is children, the conversation gets really, really dark, really quickly. And I was delaying with this. Finally, the agent still hadn't come. And I said, I had this one last stroke of genius, really was God just saying, Paul, this is what you should say. I said, you know what? I said, and the conversation had gotten so dark that I couldn't even breathe because of what they were talking about. It was literally a business plan about what you do to the kids and where you get them and how you, all of this stuff. And I couldn't even breathe. It was getting so dark. So I said, guys, I'm willing to do this.
And they were allegedly renting them to you for a couple hours.
Yeah.
That's all this was.
Yeah, that's all it was. But it was for the purpose of me funding this resort for them so they can build out this business. And I said, look, you've proven to me all this stuff. You brought the inventory. You brought what we were looking for. I said, I'm willing to do this. I said, but I want 55%. You guys take the other 45. And I said, I looked at this Edouard guy. I said, you're providing the land and you put most of this together. I think you should get 30%. The rest of them can split 15%. There was a bunch of other traffickers there. And they started arguing. I thought, oh, good. We can stop talking about this business plan for a minute. And they started yelling at each other. I said, you know what? You guys figure out what that's going to be. And we'll put it here. And it was an argument for almost 10 minutes. Finally, boom, the agents came, stormed the island, arrested everybody, us included. Bad guys think that we got extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. And at that point, they had taken the traffickers off. We were laying there in the sand. I went into this other part of the house where I could get my bags and stuff. And at that point, the Child Protective Services people were in with the children. And to calm them down, they were laughing and singing with the children. And compared to the crying I heard half an hour before, that laughing and singing, that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. And I started crying. I turned to the agent that was with me. I said, bro, I spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. I had a Lamborghini Aventador that I was going to buy that spring. I said, I'm not going to buy that car. I want to write the check instead. I said, what do you need? And he said, Paul, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to wear a $50,000 watch to negotiate a deal like this. He said, sadly, it's guys like you who are the demand. He says, it's the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, guys with big egos and big money and lust and greed. He says, don't take it wrong, but you're exactly what they're looking for. He says, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life.
My friends, if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to give you an opportunity to become my partner in business. Franzese Wine experiencing tremendous growth over the past couple of years, and we're going to experience even further growth in the next few years. You're going to have an opportunity to be my partner because you've been supporting me, you've been my fan base, and I want to share this with you. So go to invest.franzesewine.com, and offer you shouldn't refuse.